Hi guys, my name's Francesca Tomlinson and welcome to my first ever YouTube video. So I decided to start this YouTube channel as a platform to be able to discuss film reviews, directors, actors and a bit of everything in between. When I was first deciding if to start the channel, I realised that there was a lack of young females out there looking at films from a personal perspective, as much so as there is in the industry itself. So that's what pushed me to start this channel and just see where it goes from there. Now the first video I make isn't going to be an introduction into me and who I am. I'm just going to go straight into it and start my first film review, which is King Arthur, The Legend of the Sword. Is that what it's called? So this film is directed by Guy Ritchie. And he's most famously known for films such as Snatch, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and the Sherlock Holmes adaptations. Now before I get any deeper into this, I should probably confess that Guy Ritchie is like my favourite director. So I went into this film with a mindset of this is going to be amazing, and I actually came out of it being like, that was amazing. I guess I could have come out quite disappointed actually with such high expectations, especially since I'd heard so many negative reviews about the film itself from other people. However, I think if you're going into the film hoping that this is going to be a Guy Ritchie film with everything that you would expect from him, then you can't be disappointed. So I'm sure most of you already know the storyline of King Arthur and the Sword in the Stone, but if you don't, I'll just give you a quick rundown of this adaptation. Basically, a young boy named Arthur is stripped of his birthright when his father, the king, is killed by his own brother Vortigern, who steals the throne for himself. In a bid to escape, the young Arthur is taken in and looked after by a group of women in a town where he grows up and trains to be a great fighter. But when he finally pulls the sword from the stone, this begins the great battle between him and Vortigern of who will claim the throne. So most of you will know from the original storyline that the fact that no one can pull the sword from the stone apart from Arthur is quite a supernatural storyline, and it comes from an old myth. But Guy Ritchie kind of takes this and he makes it a lot more mythological. From giant killer elephants to eel-shaped women with 8 tentacles, it kind of goes a bit crazy from there on. And I do think it tends to become a bit ridiculous at times, and I would have preferred it to have been a bit more realistic and kept in the traditional way. But then again, it's an adaptation and things have to change for it to become new and more interesting. The main cast stems across quite a few different characters, but your main characters are King Arthur and Vortigern, played by Charlie Hunnam and Jude Law. Now Jude Law is actually a personal favourite of mine, especially in some of his earlier work like Talented Mr. Ripley, and obviously I love the Sherlock Holmes films. But he tends to play very similar characters. Could be due to the fact that he has such a classically noticeable English accent. It's like Michael Caine, if you hear his voice, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. That was so bad. You know that it's Michael Caine, you listen to it, you're like, oh yeah, it's Michael, and it's the same with Jude Law. It can retract from you seeing them as the character and more as the individual person. But I was quite excited to see him in a more menacing character rather than someone who's kind of the love interest or a bit of a softer persona. And although his character is menacing, it isn't done in the stereotypical way. He isn't physically powerful, but it's his ability to manipulate others that makes him so threatening. Very important though about Vortigern's character is actually the sympathy that we feel for him. Yes, I know, shocker, sympathy for the villain, that's never been done before. But it always adds an interesting depth. His desire for power doesn't just consume who he is, it consumes the loved ones around him. And sympathy for him is actually built in his harshest and most evil moments, which creates such a contrapuntal feeling for the audience. We don't want to feel sympathy for him, but we do because we can see the grief that he is feeling. Therefore, you can visibly see the contrast between him and Charlie Hunnam's character, Arthur. Now, for a second, right, picture this. You take Jon Snow's voice and you take Heath Ledger's cocky persona in A Knight's Tale and you've got yourself Charlie Hunnam's King Arthur. And I'm not complaining because basically what more could you want from a main character? Not to mention we actually see him earn his right to his power, unlike Vortigern who is actually born into it. Now I've actually never seen Charlie Hunnam in anything else, so I was quite excited to see him in this film. And I was actually pleasantly surprised with the way he was able to play with the character. He wasn't on one note. You were able to kind of see his anger and his frustration, but his humour and his love for his friends around him. But what's really interesting is we actually see his most important character development over a 5-minute montage. Right near the beginning, instead of seeing him grow and develop over the entire movie, we see it within 5 minutes. And that's really important because we have grown up with him in such a split second, we actually feel connected to him in a way that we wouldn't normally until the end of the film. As expected from Guy Ritchie, there's always one female character who aids the men on their journey to success. But I must admit I wasn't particularly invested in her character, which actually was an issue with a lot of other characters around them. We kind of understand who they are and we understand that their purpose is to just assist King Arthur, but I didn't feel any attachment to them.
I've never had any power or any desire to achieve it.
What's most interesting about Guy Ritchie's work is his composition of shots and the editing to go along with it. Ritchie has an auteur that you can spot a mile off. Now I understand why people may find the film disjointed. If you hate montages in a film, then avoid this at all costs. But it is Guy Ritchie. His editing is always slightly fragmented. And I understand that this film kind of takes it to its limits, but I enjoyed it and I thought it worked perfectly with the atmosphere of the film. There's actually a forest scene where Arthur is running through it, and it can be played side by side with the Sherlock Holmes film, and you can just see these resemblances between the two, and you know who has created that scene in that moment. The camera whips and pans, and the editing changes from fast-paced to slow motion, and it's intoxicating. You're in it, you feel that moment, you feel that pressure and that intensity, and it's always so exciting. There's one scene that's most prominent to me, and that is where Arthur actually uses the sword for the first time. And this scene is so well made. It's kind of like when you watch Quicksilver in the new X-Men movies and everything's slow motion but he's still moving with speed around them, that you're just trapped in this moment. You're not in the slow motion where they are, you're in the speed of it with your protagonist. You feel epic, you feel like you're conquering these people, that you're the one that's hitting them with the sword and kicking them to the knees. And I think it always shows so much skill when Guy Ritchie is able to do that. I think the script was able to do justice for the characters. Although simplistic at time, it is a child's fairy tale that is just taken with the grittiness that you would expect and that is actually loved in TV series like Game of Thrones. And I can't sit here without mentioning the music. I was sat in my seat in the cinema like trying to hold in my squeals when the first music started, because it was basically the Sherlock Holmes music but with a medieval twist, so it had a couple of extra drums in there. And I'm not gonna lie, I am slightly obsessed, but I was freaking out because the opening scene was so epic and there was all these montages and intensity as the camera like zooms through this derelict city that is just in its height of war. And within seconds, I was immersed in this storyline. I was ready to fight alongside all the characters and go on this journey with them. So if you love Game of Thrones, this is definitely the movie for you. And if you're a fan of Guy Ritchie, then you need to see it as soon as possible because I think this is one of the best things he's ever done. And if you don't apply to either of those, I still recommend it because it's a film that's full of fun and excitement and camaraderie.
That's what all the fuss is about.
Don't worry, you'll soon understand what all the fuss is about.
So if you like my review, give it a big thumbs up, comment below your favourite Guy Ritchie film, and subscribe to my channel because there's a lot more coming from me. Thanks, bye!